Okay, today we're going to be working with just some text animations and just kind of discussing the different possibilities with text, I guess. Might not be too long, but we'll get into it. Let's just get a basic background to be able to show the text. This is going to be an Adobe After Effects. And we're going to work in 4K or a 3840 by 2160 resolution. Any kind of widescreen video is always going to be, any type of widescreen video is always going to be in a 16:9 aspect ratio. But we could mess around with some vertical text too, and that's going to be in actually it's 9:16, but it ends up being 1080 by 1920. Let's just go into backgrounds and this is a pretty basic. This is a little. We'll just use this. This is a background. This is something that I've used for a different YouTube video thing, animated YouTube video. So we'll just have this kind of basic background. So it's 25%. Okay, so we just kind of have a basic background there. And let's just do some stuff with text. So let's say you wanted to create, we'll create a text. So we'll do layer new text, and we'll just write, I don't know, let's say when idiots drive. Say that's something we wanted. When idiots drive, I don't know, we'll just say when idiots drive. So you can barely see it there. So let's blow that up. Okay, and we have that centered. So maybe that was going to be like the name of the video or something. I'd probably want it in caps though. When idiots drive. Okay, so we have a basic text. First, we can go to character and choose the font. Let's say we wanted to, I mean, you could just kind of see the samples to see what you might like. You could also use your own font, and I do have a couple different fonts that I've created that are in here, and it's actually very basic to get it compatible with After Effects. But let's use, it says Cooper Block. One thing to be aware of if you work on a couple different computers, if you have different versions of After Effects, they may not have all the same fonts, and what will happen is you'll take your project over and the alignment will change because the font will change. Just something to keep in mind. So let's align that center. It looks like it's italicized. I don't know that I want that, but there we go. Okay. You have these buttons here on the bottom. Title action safe is good to keep in mind. Like if this were going to be the poster on a video or something, I would want to see these different letter boxes and make sure it's within those. Because if it's not, if it's something official, they'll reject it, if that makes sense. So maybe we'll drag it down to like the bottom of the screen, something like right there. And then, okay, so we have our basic text, but obviously there's no animation to it. So we'll just kind of talk about some different things you can do. And one thing right off the bat is, at the very least, we probably want a little bit of a stroke layer on this. It looks like there already is. You just can't really see it. Maybe we want that stroke layer to stand out a little more. So let's change that to maybe a red. There we go. Now it stands out a little bit more. And then we can actually take that down to 15. Okay, so one of the most basic things we can do is just kind of have it come across the screen and say we want that entire process to last. Let's say we'll go 3 seconds. We want it to start off screen and come to into the middle and maybe stop and then go to the other side at the 3rd second. So what your impulse might be, okay, so I want it, your impulse might be, say, let's say at the 1 second mark. All right, so I want it centered at 1 second. So I'm just going to press the center button there. And then at second number 3, I mean, this way will probably work too, but at second number 3, we want it over here. And then at second number 2, we still want it. We still want it centered. And then we could see how that would work. And that's fine. And so this happens a lot, actually. So at second number 1, if you look at the position there, at second number 1 and second number 2, the position doesn't change, but there's some movement in between these keyframes. At least it shouldn't change. Yeah, so the movement doesn't change, but there's some movement within these keyframes, and that'll kind of make you pull your hair out the first time because you don't understand why, because you didn't keyframe any changes in between these two. And all that is it's After Effects, and it'll do this in Premiere Pro too, where all you have to do is you select the keyframes, right click, go to keyframe interpolation, and what's causing it to do that is it's probably on auto Bezier. I don't know how to pronounce it. If you just change that to linear, it shouldn't be doing that anymore. Now it just stays in place. So it's just an effect that After Effects sometimes has. And this same problem will occur when you're moving around the background or like the composition, and all of a sudden you're getting black corners popping up because the image is moving like out of frame, like something like that. And you won't know why, because you never instructed it to move to that part. And all that is that continuous Bezier or auto Bezier. Okay, so that's a real basic thing. The text is coming on screen and then it's moving on to the left. Let's say I'm happy with that movement, but with this background, I'm not really seeing it as well as I want to. So maybe what I want is kind of just like a banner behind it to make it stick out or to provide more contrast. I think a good color for that might be maybe the same as the sky, but a little bit brighter. So I'm going to create a whole new layer, put it behind here, and then I'm going to create a mask on that layer. And in case you're wondering, that mask property is going to be, the mode is add. If I had subtract, it would be the opposite, but we want it on add. Okay, so now I have kind of a banner layer. Maybe I want a little bit of a stroke to that banner layer. So we're just going to go into effects here, type in stroke, generate stroke, and we're going to drag that onto that medium solid one. And we can rename that. Like I've always said, it's really important that you name your layers to know what they are later. So let's change this color to, we'll go white, and then brush size, let's go 10. Actually, let's go 20. And it's already set to mask 1. If I had multiple masks, I could check this box for all masks. So let's go to this image. Let's enlarge this a little bit. Okay. All right. So now we have a banner, right? So that's good. But the problem is it's not moving with the text. So, you know, the basic, you could just think, okay, well, what I'll do is I'll just keyframe it like I did the text. And then you do something like this where you start it off screen and then you go to the first second, and then you center it, and then you have the second, you have it in the same position, and then at second number 3, you move it over here. Now that kind of works, and as you'll see here, but it's really not moving. They're really not simultaneous. It's just kind of a simulation of it, especially if you wound up, let's say I wound up with that position there and this position here. Now you're going to see it's not moving directly with the text. And that would happen a lot, especially if the movement was more varied to where the text was maybe moving up or down along with to the side. So I'm going to show an easier way to do that with After Effects. So we're going to delete all that. We're just going to go to this, one of these center frames here. I'm going to center it. And I could also center this banner to this by clicking on Align, Selection, Center, Center. And now the two pieces are aligned. Okay, so one of the best features of After Effects is this parenting. So all I'm going to do is go to Parent and Link on Banner, and I'm going to select my text layer. I actually prefer to do it the opposite around, where the text follows the banner. But so now, because I parented it here, it's going to move simultaneously. And one of the interesting things, I think, is let's say it matters where I am in the timeline. So if I was right here in the timeline and decided to parent the banner to the text layer, then it's going to forever stay this far to the left of the text. And I'll show you what that looks like. So if you did it and you're wondering why it's doing like that, it's because you didn't have it centered when you click the parent, or you didn't have it in the position that you want, I should say. Okay, so now we have a text that's moving. And we could do some like fancier things with the movement too. Let's just delete all that. And let's say, okay, so we want the text to start here. And we know let's say we want it centered at 1 second again, and centered at 2 seconds. We'll just click this button here for a keyframe. And then at 3, we want it off to the left. Okay, so nothing's changed from what we had before. But one kind of cool thing we could do is let's move up to 1 second and let's say 8 frames. Okay, and have it centered there. And then what we'll do is go about 8 frames before the 2 second mark, maybe, or even, let's just do 8 frames again. So we'll go to 1 second and 16 frames, and we're going to keyframe this here. And so what I can do is actually, let's drag this a little beyond it, just a little bit, and then maybe 4 frames before, go back to a little earlier, and I'll show you what that's doing. And that's basically creating this, it kind of looks like it's stopping and returning to place. And I think this actually needs to come earlier. And okay, so you see the basic effect. It doesn't really look too smooth. And I'll show you, okay, and then we'll talk about one way we could circumvent that. And then let's say before it accelerates again, it starts back. And then I can actually delete this. And we can let's just move these 2 frames back here. Okay, so let's see how that looks. Way too bouncy. Let's get this right before. Oops. And so if you can see what I'm doing, I'm not changing the position of anything. I'm just moving the keyframes just to get a better idea. Okay, and that's kind of like how my subscribe animation is. So one way we could make it a little more smooth is we can right click here and let's just do, well, so we're clicked all the keyframes and now we're going to click on Easy Ease and we'll see how that looks. So it just makes it a little more smooth. And then we could also just kind of mess around with the timing and the position. For instance, I think this one is too far to the left. But you notice how the banner is taking on all the same properties as the text so that I don't have to do it more than once. Okay, and we'd probably want it to stay on screen a little bit longer. Okay, so now we have some real basic movement. Let's say I wanted to do something a little fancier with the text. I can do something called a track mat. So let's say we wanted some, well, there's a few different things we could do, but let's say, I don't know how well this will work while doing live stream, but I'll just import a kind of a moving video. Let's see, Blues House exterior. Okay, so this is kind of a drawn out fire animation. And I'll show you what I'm doing here in a second. Let's go to 50%. And let's move it. Maybe we want to write on idiots. And let's actually do 25%. And then we can also parent that to an idiots drive. And let's say we did a track mat. Actually, what I want to do with this. Okay. And let's just create. So I'm creating a mask so I don't have more image than is actually going to be shown. So let's see how this. Well, actually, what I'll do is I'll show you it without any movement because it's having trouble buffering it. So let's just go right here. Let's actually, we're just going to delete everything we just did with the keyframe movement, and we're just going to center it. Okay. So it's kind of having a little bit of trouble buffering it, which is kind of what I expected, but there is, you can see there's video moving, moving within the text. So I know I'm kind of acting all slow here, but let me import a actual video and you could probably get a better example of what I'm trying to show. So we'll go to, okay, so I'm just importing an actual video here. We'll do that instead of, we'll get that in the background. And then I'm going to do a track mat for that first text. Oops. I'm going to do, okay. So now let's see if this will play. I don't need any audio. So you can see you can use a video as a track mat to the text. And this isn't really a very good example of it at all, but it's allowing, let's just scale this up and center. It's allowing the video to take the place of the text color. And I can control that with opacity, but it's just kind of a cool effect if, say, I wanted to, do something like this, I think. Let's see, the opacity's down. Where's the banner? There we go. If I wanted to do something like this, you know, and all I did is duplicate the video, but you could see there's, instead of like a text color, you're just able to play this video through it. And I think I did that on when I did a Doctor with the Red House, where I think I did something like that with the credits. So let's get rid of all that video. And then another effect that we could do is, let's get this back in front of this, is that I really like to mess with fractal noise is one. Yeah, let's do fractal noise. So I'm going to put that on here. So this is another way to make some movement. And I use this effect a lot for like smoke on fire and stuff. But let's change this. Let's get it taking up more of the screen. So let's, instead of When Idiots Drive, let's just call this text. And let's make that a little bigger to take up more of the screen. Let's just do maybe 1,000. Yeah, center that. And we don't even need that banner right now. Okay, so you kind of have a little bit of texture to the text now. We probably still would want some kind of banner. So let's just make like a, we'll do like that. Okay, so you kind of have a little bit of texture to it, but what's cool about this effect also is that you can have it moving over time, and that movement will stay within the text. So for example, I can go to this transform property within fractal noise. I can click the stopwatch on offset turbulence, and let's say at 4 seconds, I want that to be moving in a certain direction. So let's say to negative 2,000, and let's just pull this over to 5,000. We can see how that looks. So now we have like movement within the text. That's a little bit too fast, I think, but once again, with this keyframe properties, we can go down here to effects, transform, see where it is on the timeline, and I can just move that keyframe down. Let's say that we wanted it moving over the course of 18 seconds or something. I can just drag that keyframe over here, and now the movement will be slower. Or if what I wanted to do is just have the movement be slower within 4 seconds, as I could change the destination properties of the complexity of the, of the offset turbulence. This is like too much black and white, I think. So what I would probably do here, for one, we can increase the brightness, but what I would probably do is take the opacity down, let's say to 75. Okay, so now you have some movement. Let's try something else. I'm not sure how well this will work, but let's say I didn't really like the font color and I wanted more of like a texture to already be there. I can import something else for a different track matte. So for that, we'll do, let's do sand. So this is something I call beach sand. It's just a layer that I will probably use exclusively for beach sand, but you can see it's already got some kind of texture to it. And let's make that text. And And let's take the opacity down to 50. And now we have a little bit more color to it, but we kind of have a cool looking text. Yeah, so that's another thing we can do. Let's say we wanted to, let's get rid of that. Let's say instead we just wanted to create this cool little logo. Maybe we can do something with mask. So for instance, we can, in other words, we can, instead of moving the text, we can actually keyframe different mask. So I can double click on that. Let's get a box like this. So let's just duplicate that and move it over here. And is this even centered? Okay. So maybe we want it to appear over time, one side at a time. We can go to these mask properties. I'm going to click on mask, stopwatch mask path and expansion. And I'm going to do that for both mask. And let's say we want it to appear kind of after 2 seconds. I'm going to grab this first mask and let's just bring it over here. I'm going to grab the second mask and bring it over here. And now it's going to kind of appear over time. And so you could use that as kind of an opening to the video, or if you have like a social media channel, you can use that as kind of like a logo or something. And you could take that principle and you can even do more with it. For instance, let's delete all those properties and we'll delete mask 2. And maybe we wanted to do, okay, sorry, it's auto saving. All right, so maybe we wanted to do like 4 different quarters to these masks, right? So we'll take that mask there. So now we have the upper portions. We'll duplicate that again. Now we have the lower portions. You do want to be careful of having your mask aligned perfectly, because you can end up, without realizing it, you may end up cutting off a portion of the text. Okay, so let's say we wanted, so we'll just go to the frame 2. We'll just put keyframes for them all there. And I like to start with how I want the animation to end. So it's already positioned to show the entire text layer. So that's why I'm starting on the second of this and keyframing the position. And so we'll go to the first. Let's say we'll go to each different mask. Maybe we want it like coming from the corners. Let's do that. So like Premiere Pro and probably After Effects, they have a lot of different built-in kind of generative effects you can just slap on. But that'll like probably do something similar to this. But it's cool to know how to do it on your own, especially if you're making your own kind of animation. So let's see how that looks. Yeah, so like obviously that looks pretty basic. But you're able to play with it. So now you have a little bit more control over it. You can change the timing of it. Like, I don't know how this will look at all, but we can just change. Let's change when it comes together. So you could change the timing of it so it's not so exact. There you go. So you could play around with it, do different things. Another really cool, one of the built-in effects that After Effects has is typewriter. So they have different generative things for text, but I like typewriter a lot because if let's say you're doing an animation and you have a character like typing on a computer or into a phone, it becomes very useful. So I'm trying to remember where this is going to be. I think it's under assets, maybe. Okay. So like, let's say I was doing an animation where somebody was doing some web browsing. So I wanted it to appear as though they were typing in a internet browser form. I want to see if I have one without the text already there. Okay. So let's say I wanted to do a animation here where somebody was doing some internet browsing. I'll get this in the background so there's something there. Let's say they're just on a website now, and so you can see like I've already created different things and exported them. And this is probably the last thing I show, but let's say we want a new text layer, and then we'll call this www.randomtextthings.com. Okay. So I can just align that to the top. We got to really take the size of this down. Let's go to like 50 maybe. Okay. So for this, I probably want no stroke layer. And the text to be black. Let's do more of a, let's change the font real quick. We'll do, not that this even matters. I'd like Courier New, but I don't see it. So we'll just do this random thing. So let's say this was our website or whatever. And we can even actually add in a HTTP, something like that. And let's line it up to where we'd want it. Maybe right there. Okay, so let's say we want it to appear that the character is typing this in. I can add this typewriter effect. Oops. So I'm just going to drag this typewriter into here. And then we're going to, so you already see it already be built in where it's typing, but that's kind of too fast for somebody to text. So we can just change the properties of when it starts and stops typing. So maybe we'll start it at 11 frames and then end it at like, I don't know, 5 seconds. And you can also play around with the speed of it if you wanted. But so now if I want to show this in a video, I could do something like that. It's a little too smooth. I don't know if we'll do some offset, but I think that might just change when the letters are typed. No, it worked. All right, so now it kind of looks like somebody's potentially texting. So just some real simple things I wanted to show, and I think that covers enough for today. So we can just end it right there. If you watched and enjoyed, thank you. Hopefully you learned something understandable if you didn't, and that's it.